Hi everyone, welcome back to another fun episode of Hotel Talk. And today I have with us the Marketing and Communications Manager of Cybarco Development, Miss Sophia Paraskeva, who we have to, disclaimer before we start, say that we're really good friends. So there's going to be a lot of giggles, a lot of banter. We go back a long way, and my goodness, do we have so many memories together. And even more than that, the families. I mean, your mum was at the birth of my husband.
It's a little bit insane, yeah.
So it's crazy. She's also the podcast host of Destination Cyprus. So we're going to talk a little bit about podcasting and being a host and so much more. So welcome, Sophia.
Thank you. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. Great to see how well this podcast is doing as well. I'm a big fan.
Oh, thank you so much, as I am of yours too. So let's start, as I usually do at the beginning. Tell us a little bit about you. Obviously I know, but tell me stuff I don't know.
Okay, so, I'm a born and bred Limassolian, and obviously we love Limassol. I have sort of the cocktail route you were discussing yesterday with Dimis. So my mother's English and my father's a Limassolian. And I'm fortunate to say that I started school in the Greek system, which I thought was very beneficial. And I'm glad that my parents took that decision. So I was at Greek school at Lanidio, actually, which again, Dimis was talking about in the last episode, until 15. And then I went to an English school, which is where I think the first connection started between us. That's where I got to know you. And ironically, because my mum was one of a handful of British women married to Cypriots, because that was the trend at the time, Cypriot men born in the 40s, went to university in the UK, married a British woman and brought her back. So it just so happened that lots of my family friends were also my classmates when I shifted over to the English system. And that was Michael, one of them, of course. So, yeah, my mum was at your husband's birth, which is an amazing coincidence. And then I went to London at university, where I studied media art. It was supposed to be one of the good media courses, although I do still say that I wasted my dad's money for 3 years because I didn't really do much. But I think I was always... it wasn't that I had an issue with academia. I just wanted to do something a little bit alternative. I was quite creative, and my uncle was at the time, my mum's brother was working at the BBC, and he was a director, and he was making amazing documentaries. And there was something about the TV industry that really grabbed me. So I went to London. After my degree, I got my first job in... Actually, I was at BFBS, so British Forces Broadcasting Services headquarters in the UK. So I was working there for a while. And then I moved over to Sky. And Sky B is just like this amazing, it's kind of like a campus. There's thousands of employees and various departments, obviously, for all the channels. So I spent a good 8 years at Sky, moving between Sky Movies, Sky Creative, Sky News. That's when I also started getting involved in on-screen presenting. And lo and behold, at 30, I had an early midlife crisis, and I decided I wanted to come back home. So that's when I came to Cyprus. My first job was actually with a very good family friend, Askanis. I was there for a few months. And that's when I was actually headhunted for this amazing new project everyone was talking about at the time, Limassol Marina. I had met the general manager of Cybarco at MIPIM Property Exhibition in Cannes. And he said to me, I'm going to keep your CV in case you ever come back to Cyprus. And he obviously dug that CV out, and they approached me for PR at Limassol Marina. And that's when I sidestepped into marketing. So my first job in marketing was at Limassol Marina. Cybarco were obviously a shareholder and key in consulting the media department at Limassol Marina. So I then became the marketing manager at the project. And when I left Limassol Marina, I moved over to Cybarco, and now we're doing obviously projects like Trilogy, We've done the Oval. So yeah, it's been an amazing, like, wow, whirlwind journey, but I'm very glad to be home. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. So how did you end up then? Okay, you ended up in marketing, but very much in the development and seeing Limassol grow into what it has, because it's so different when we were kids. How's that made you feel, and how have you managed to promote that in your own unique way?
I think, I mean, I know a lot of good work has been done to promote Limassol over the decades. I think there's something about the international community here. We're very open to foreign investment. We're open to welcoming foreigners. So Limassol has always felt quite pioneering in that aspect. I was terrified about coming back to live in Limassol, and I think it was because when I left in '96, there was little available to us, a lot less than now. And I just, after living in London for, I think in total it was 11 years, I just thought, how on earth am I going to cope without the culture, without my theatre, without my concerts, without being able to go to tennis, without having access to my gym at Sky. You know, there was so much about the setup that I had in London that was just beyond my wildest dreams, you know. And I did tick off a lot of bucket lists in London. I went to Wimbledon, I went to all my favorite artists, and I was terrified. And I'm very pleased to say that I was shocked when I came back in 2008 that there was absolutely nothing lacking here. When I was obviously handed the task of promoting and helping sell properties in the millions abroad to prospective buyers for Limassol Marina, and I started going to the yacht shows, which you know better than me. It felt like a challenge, because obviously the first thing we had to do before promoting Limassol Marina to super yacht owners or to high net worth individuals was to promote the destination. And before you can promote Limassol, you have to raise awareness for Cyprus. So it was a challenge. And I think one of the amazing things about how progressive Limassolians are and the business community was that it was a joint effort, because at the time everyone was struggling to do the same thing. So there was a lot of development in Limassol, a lot of infrastructure projects taking place, and it was evolving so quickly that the private sector obviously stepped in and pumped a lot of budget, promotional marketing into these joint efforts. And here we are today. I mean, I can't believe that apart from all these amazing hotels that we've got on our coastline, we've got the 17-kilometer promenade, there's people jogging and cycling every day. We've got the casino that's opened. Well, I think it's opening, isn't it, soon?
Opening soon.
We have a golf course on its way. We've got obviously your marina, which was pioneering at the time. We've got a super yacht marina. It's like there's so much going on in Limassol. So yeah, I'm proud, because although there's a lot of controversy and a lot of negativity because people feel like they're being, effectively pushed out of their city because prices are going up, I also, as many other obviously open-minded, more entrepreneurial people, feel that it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to attract more people. It's an opportunity to attract a higher caliber of tourism. And it's an opportunity for the next generation as well, because a lot of us left home because there was nothing for us here, and we stayed away for a decade. So why lose all this talent? We have amazing talent. Exactly. So yeah, I'm very positive. I feel very excited about what's to come. And yeah, I'm very proud to be in a sector where I'm part of that journey.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. So I want to go back a bit and talk a little bit about being half-half, being a cocktail, being a mixture, and how that is growing up. I mean, obviously I'm the same, and I have my own experience with that. Many people are, many listeners are, but for everyone it's a unique journey. So how did you find that? I mean, Cyprus was a completely different world back in the 80s and 90s, and it was just so different. And so having a mum from a different culture, I mean, your mum assimilated here really well, but still it was very different. And your British side is still really British. I mean, you stayed in tune with that, in touch with that. So tell us a little bit about your experience growing up.
Look, I mean, our childhood, I mean, you were there. It was amazing. I wouldn't change a single thing. Picnics every weekend. We'd be woken up in the summer months, which were like 6 months, and we'd be taken off to Ladies Mile, and we were running up and down on a beautiful sandy beach with sand dunes. Michael and I, so your husband and I, we had this, we were called the Pig Watchers, and we had this ridiculous game that we played in the sand dunes, and there was a group of us, and it was just the freedom of a childhood here in the fields, up on tree houses. And obviously it was very organic, wasn't it? Because we didn't have technology, we didn't have mobile phones, we didn't have computers.
We barely had television back then.
And it was safe. Oh God, I can remember Wimbledon. We all had this ridiculous like router, an antenna that we had to wind to get a signal from
the bases.
From the bases or from the Middle East, just to watch something like Wimbledon. Because even our TV and our channels were limited. So I don't think I ever really felt, different when I was young, because my childhood was full of other people like me. And that was the advantage, of course, that our family friends were all half. So it just felt like the normal thing to do. Speaking Gringlish was like, 2 words English, 2 words Greek. And it felt quite normal. I think the big difference for me, obviously, aside from switching education systems, which was quite tough because, your vocabulary when you're doing a subject like chemistry or physics, I mean, when you switch from speaking in Greek to English system, O levels and A levels, I found that quite challenging. But mainly, I would say when I left to go to university, it kind of felt as if every time I got on a plane to go to the UK, I'd land at Heathrow and I'd just inhale and I'd be like, wow, I'm home. And then I'd have my little stint in the UK, and then I'd get on a plane to come back to Cyprus for the holidays, and I would weep on the plane as the plane was landing, and the plane doors would open and I'd get hit by that kind of like the Cyprus
heat. The
air
smell?
and humidity, and I'd be like, I'm home. So there is that duality, which is very confusing. I know now that I belong in Cyprus, but there is this sense of lack of belonging that is equally confusing in your friendships and your relationships, because I find that if I'm not mixing with people from a similar background, it's not to say that they're not like-minded if they're Cypriots or if they're just British, but there is something about people who have this kind of mixed background that has a common thread running through it that helps you gel. And I can remember even in the UK, I'd go to the hairdresser and somebody from Croatia or Italy would be doing my hair, and we immediately connected because there was something about that Mediterranean family feeling or the way they grew up that I could understand and relate to. So it's tough. I'm not going to say it's easy. And hence, I think why a lot of our friends have ended up with a partner from a similar background, someone who can tolerate us. Yeah. And they've run out now.
Oh, don't worry. You'll be there for round two. Round two. You get the divorcees.
Yeah.
No, it is. It's definitely, as you said, it could be a whole episode on its own. Because it's definitely interesting growing up with a cocktail background. It has so many advantages. It's amazing, but it can be very confusing, and not everyone thrives on that. No. Some people come out really well, and others a
bit disturbed.
Yes, like a little bit.
But the thing is, I mean, even my parents, and my father's a big advocate of this, but it's hard enough to make a marriage work when you have common values and a common background and a common upbringing. So to inject the difference of nationality and culture, I mean,
religion and everything
my
else.
parents, I mean, okay, thankfully there's none of the religious issues, so they're quite relaxed like that. But for my mum, I mean, she still can't understand, you know, why my dad falls over backwards to deliver something to my sister at 47 because she doesn't have it. She's like, my mum, you know, in her
Pull
mind,
your socks up. Yeah.
in her mind, why are you still this attached to your daughters? They're in their 40s. She was, you know, raised in a completely different way. You know, children are far more independent in some other cultures. And in the UK, it's not the done thing that you kind of mollycoddle your kids when they're in their 40s. So those things,
even in their 20s.
yeah, those things I think are an issue that I can see and identify. Definitely the difference in culture can be a problem. And I think that's why when you've both got a mix, it's easier, definitely easier.
And a lot of humour, as we know, helps us. So let's talk about some funny memories, because I think from so many of my questions have been answered by you already, which is amazing. But let's talk. I mean, a lot of people will be like, wow, like you are a girl from Cyprus and you went to England, albeit being half English, and you ended up working for Sky. I mean, that's pretty impressive. How did that happen? And tell us some stories along the way. Give some people some inspiration for there's many people who would dream of this. And then some funny things about Sky TV that maybe we know or don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually, it's quite a privilege to be able to have this conversation because ironically, no one's ever asked me about life before 2008. And that's something that I find bizarre about Cyprus. I think we're so insular here because it's such a little bubble. Few of us know what people were getting up to before they came back to settle here. So I was really fortunate because I went to Royal Holloway, which is a beautiful college of the University of London, which actually recently featured in the series U. It's that beautiful red brick building.
It's amazing, yeah.
And on my course in media arts, there were two of our friends from school. So Ellie was in the class above me, and Ellie was with me, and Natalie Kiri was above me. So I kept in touch not only with them, but also with some of the other girls on my course, so Faye and Catherine. And then I disappeared off into central London to live with Yasmina, who's another one of our friends. And I did a very short stint in real estate with Foxtons, which was absolutely ruthless. But I thought I'd try.
I didn't know that. So there was real estate that got in there early.
Yeah, it was. Well, yeah, because my dad was in real estate. So I thought I'd give it a try. But yeah, Foxtons were it was a tough gig. It was quite ruthless. We were in St. John's Wood promoting property there. So while I was there, I got a text message from Natalie, I think it was, to say, Sophia, I'm a runner at the moment at Sky Movies or Sky Creative, and I'm leaving, and they're looking for somebody to be an assistant to the creative director. And by the way, Faye and Catherine, so half of the Royal Holloway people from my course were at Sky. So by complete, I don't want to say coincidence because I believe in fate. I think everything happens for a reason. I got my foot in the door over a summer period at Sky, and then I was offered permanent employment. And now Sky was this just amazing campus in Osterley, which is near, between Heathrow and central London. And it was amazing. I mean, it was like an extension of university. We all had these like little access cards, and there were turnstiles, and there was a massive canteen. It was full of cute boys who worked in Sky Sports. It was like being in heaven because it was what I had studied. I was in a TV environment, and it was just this creative pool of people. My first boss, a creative director, Francis Naylor, is basically who I've become. And it's amazing how much your first boss can shape you. So Frances was always, she was always bossing people around. And she had this ridiculous filing system where she had blocks of paper for each TV project. So the first project was Steps live in your living room. And then it was Westlife live in your living room. And it was all these kind of like bands and stuff. And she had piles of paper with a paper clip, and then when the project finished, she'd open a drawer and chuck it in. So once every few months, we'd do a clear out of her office, which was basically just recycling paper because she'd throw things around. And she was amazing at what she did, and she was such a fantastic personality. She used to be, I think, she was one of the founders at MTV and VH1. So I learned a lot from her, a lot about her management style. I can see in me now a lot about the way she would organize herself and sort of delegate through projects. And we all had these massive TVs on our desks. So it was an open plan office with massive TVs. So the first memory that I have as her assistant was of her booking, asking me to put things in her calendar. And then she'd grab me and she'd say, come on, Sophia, we're off to Chiswick. And we'd go to Chiswick and we'd have a lunch, or she'd go and do a tanning session. Then there was 9/11, which was another amazing moment at Sky. When I say amazing, tragically awful time, but amazing to watch how a corporation of that scale functioned when something like that happened, because we all had TVs on our desks. So we were watching this live, and to watch people's reactions when the second plane hit the tower. And then I immediately ran to the newsroom to see, I've got goosebumps. I ran to the newsroom to see how they were going to, tackle the story. And then we had to go to programming and pull any show that showed the Twin Towers, any episode of Friends with the Twin Towers. So it was a lot. There was a rush about live TV that was amazing. And then Princess Productions also came to Sky to set up Rise, which was a breakfast show with some quite known presenters. And I was on the launch team as a production secretary. So I'd wake up at 3 a.m. and go to the studio, with your coffees. And it was all that kind of morning rush of being in a live studio. We then, I moved over to Sky Movies production, where I was responsible for coordinating the Academy Awards, so the Oscars, live from LA in the UK. We had the Empire Film Awards every year, which was at the Dorchester Hotel. Then I started getting involved in the junkets, and that's where I started interviewing actors before the release of their movies. So I think another funny story was, I don't know if it's funny actually, but I have to say it. I find it incredibly funny. It's a memory that all my friends at Sky know about anyway. The Empire Film Awards, I was sitting with, it's David Suchet and David Ginola. And at one point I was forcefully removed from the room because I was having way too much fun for them. Benicio del Toro and Scarlett Johansson were there, and somebody was vomiting in a bathroom. I mean, the things I have seen in the A-list world is quite... I could write a book on that, actually.
Maybe you should.
I wouldn't, but I could. There were loads of film premieres that were quite fun. And then something that I would love to kind of share for people who, because we were having a conversation yesterday with Stylianos, who you know. And
who's been on this podcast.
Yeah, he's an entrepreneur who's very much about, doers, about that whole mentality of try and, start at the bottom, climb the ladder. I will never forget that at Sky, one of the reasons I got noticed and I got the good jobs was because I was enthusiastic and I was genuinely, passionately keen. And I can remember volunteering every time my boss would say, we've got a shoot in Newcastle, we're going to cover Access All Areas, a Westlife concert. I'd be like, can I go, please? I'll pay for my tickets. Or, for example, when I was coordinating the BAFTA Tea Party for the Golden Globes week in LA, I went to the head of Sky and I said, look, I've coordinated the whole thing. It's a shame to miss on the experience. I'd like to go and I will pay for my hotel and my flights. And I went and I paid. And when I came back, she called me into her office and she said, I've had feedback that you were working really hard on the red carpet. I'd like to thank you. And she said, I was so impressed by your initiative that I'm refunding you your plane and your hotel. And, I think for me, it was that kind of attitude that got me to enjoy these amazing experiences, because I did. I felt so grateful. I'm at Sky, Soccer AM, all these film junkets. I'll never forget, actually, I was coordinating a team of 11 producers, and somebody said, oh, guys, we've just got notice from, I can't remember if it was Warner Brothers or not. But anyway, I've just got notice that somebody needs to fly out to the Bahamas tomorrow to interview Johnny Depp and Tim Burton for Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And I was like, guys, who wants to go? And all the producers were like, oh, I can't, I'm busy. Someone else was like, oh, yeah, I can't, I'm watching the rugby. And I wasn't an interviewer at the time, but I said, well, I'll go. And of course, you know, my boss said, okay, go. So I'm in first class flying to the Bahamas to interview Johnny Depp. And I'm just thinking, wow.
Yeah, what's wrong with everyone else?
Well, but this was it. It was all about grabbing opportunities. And for me, that's what life has always been about. It's all about an opportunity comes your way, even if you're not sure, grab it, because you never know where it will take you. There were so many amazing experiences during my time at Sky, so many amazing people that I met and interviewed. You know, Nicole Kidman, Oliver Stone, Gwyneth Paltrow, Richard Gere, Liam Neeson. I can't even fathom the life that I had there. It seems such a long distance away, but
a different chapter.
I think it was all a case of I'm going to go and I'm going to give London my all, because who knows, maybe one day I won't be there, and I'm not anymore. So I'm really glad I did all of that. Really
I'm
glad.
sure. It sounds just fascinating. Thank you so much for sharing that. So let's go on. I want to talk a little bit about the podcast that you're doing now. So you're also a podcast host. We started around the same time. And I love the theme of your podcast because it's obviously called Destination Cyprus. You're doing it as part of your, let's say, work, promoting Cybarco development, which is a great development company here in Cyprus, not just Limassol, it's island-wide. And there's some amazing projects like the trilogy. Obviously, we mentioned Limassol Marina. So tell us a little bit about the podcast. What made you want to start a podcast? How do you choose the people you interview? What's your aim?
Okay, so the podcast was my proposal. It was something I felt quite passionate about doing. I always like to add value when I'm working somewhere. And I did the same at Limassol Marina as well. It was my idea to pitch a project magazine. And I'll always go with a comprehensive proposal because I'm very fortunate to work for companies that are very open to ideas, as long as you can back them up. So I discovered podcasts last year, I think after COVID, ironically. But I discovered some really amazing podcasts like The Diary of a CEO, which is my favorite one. And I just thought, you know what, here we have a shift in the marketing and advertising world at the moment. People are not really reading magazines anymore. It's really difficult to catch someone's attention with press ads. It's very difficult to find people now on Facebook. Everyone's shifted to Instagram and other means. And I tried to look at our objectives as a company. And it seemed that increasingly that our buyers were coming to us direct through networks. I mean, when you're buying an apartment or a villa for 2 or 8 million, it's likely that you have come direct through a wealth manager or an agent or your accountant or your lawyer. But because you've also seen this project or company position itself in amazing places, you trust that they're credible and that they know what they're doing. So marketing, the traditional forms of marketing will always be there for us. But I felt this need to do something that, well, for a start, gives back to the community, because I didn't want to just do a hard sell. It wasn't about just promoting our properties. I also wanted to do something that adhered to the company culture, because, you know, Cybarco is a member of the Lanidis group, and the Lanidis family has given back so much to the country and to Limassol. And I just thought, what's sustainable enough to create a community that's about the amazing offering that we have in Cyprus, where I can speak to people from various sectors, where I can also speak to competitors. And because I know that obviously what we do is a skill, not everybody can do this. And I just thought I've got to utilize it for something more positive. And that, yes, maybe if we do a podcast in English, we can also attract a global audience and various markets. And I think in Cyprus, we've been very fortunate in the last years that our customers, our tourism, our property buyers, our investors have all come from one of two main markets. And we can't be complacent about that. It's not going to last forever. And I think we've all noticed in the last few years that it's already a problem for us. So this podcast was my way of suggesting something that would push all of us on a global platform, that would give all of us an opportunity to talk about how wonderful Cyprus is as a destination without limiting us based on the industry. And it was a collective effort on our company's behalf to talk about businesses that are impacting the economy. So it's just a platform for everyone to promote what they love, what they do, and our country.
And what would you say you've learned the most out of, what have you gained the most out of it?
I think I'm very, I mean, obviously we're only doing one podcast a month. It's just not feasible for me to do more. I can't possibly fit it in. But I also wanted to find hooks. So far I've approached people who, for one reason or another, have caught my attention because they've caused ripples either in the economy or the way we live, or have been very proactive, giving back to the community or establishing our image abroad. And I think the greatest takeaway from it is that everybody seems to have a sort of a common passion for Cyprus, which is great because it proves that the unique selling points of the destination run through our blood. I mean, everybody says exactly the same things, which is amazing, you know, that it's our home, that it's an amazing lifestyle that and everybody has had the opportunity to live abroad, and everybody has the talent, the skill, and the education to succeed abroad, but they choose to come back here. So I love that. I love the fact that there's this magnetism and this pull. And also, I'm fascinated by the things people would change about Cyprus because they're also proving to be quite common. So it's very interesting that when you get a segment of people across various sectors, they all have the same complaints, and they all have the same qualities to share. So it's an interesting thing. And I found that with yours as well, that there's definitely a common thread.
Definitely. What would most people say they want to change?
It all boils down to mentality. It all boils down to bureaucracy, speeding the process up, because there's so much talent and there's so much potential and there's so much resource and willingness to change. But unless some mentalities and some processes,
some of the red tape gets cut a bit. Yeah,
so it's that for me is great, because that was the aim of this podcast. It wasn't just about communicating our positives to people abroad. It was also communicating our positives in light of the negatives to the local stakeholders and the people who can make a change.
Yeah. Oh, well, I love it. And I think, anyway, we love podcasts and we love supporting each other. And there's just so much to say on that. To be honest, I feel like we need to do 10 episodes together because there's so much we could discuss. But I want to move on now to your book, which I didn't mention at the beginning in the intro. But I'm personally, as your friend, so proud of you for this book, honestly, and I'm so touched. So for those who are watching us later on YouTube, here it is. Now, pronouncing this damn name, I tell you, you've told me 100 million times.
Try.
Fovaritage.
Give it a bash.
Fovaritage.
My mother calls it Fovaritage.
Fovaritage. So it's your favourite age with your ovaries stuck in the middle.
Yes.
That I've got. But I still don't get how you pronounce it.
It's fine.
Fovaritage. So guys, this is a lovely book. It's less than 100 pages. What is it? Less than 80 pages. and nice big writing if you're over 40. You can read this easily without your
to
glasses.
fill
I love it.
space.
I love it. For me, I was like, oh, what a relief. So, yeah, it's great. And it's basically about Sophia's personal journey, an egg freezing journey. So talking about, I guess, for you spoke about being around the age of 40 and suddenly having that lovely experience thrown at you. But for so many, they might be younger. I mean, we have a member of our team here who in her mid-30s was suddenly faced with early menopause and had that decision to take. Will I ever want children with my husband? Should I freeze my eggs? Should I not? Can I afford it? Is it worth it? There's just so many things. And I think there's more and more media highlights about this topic because women are working more, they're working longer, they're getting higher positions, and they are suddenly reaching their 40s where unfortunately there is this biological clock ticking and it is becoming an issue. And even Jennifer Aniston came out recently saying, I wish someone had just told me when I was younger to freeze my eggs. And that's something that you're discussing here. Tell us a bit about this book. What inspired you to write it? What inspired you to share it? Because it's not easy to share.
Yeah. I mean, the older I get, the more authentic I'm trying to be because I find that it's absolutely pointless hiding how you feel from people. I've spent way too long doing that. So I'm no longer bottling anything. It's all out there on the table. But for me, this journey started one day when I was leaving my office. I think I was 39 at the time. My sister had just had a baby. And I was leaving.
Who's your older sister? So
Yeah.
she's just a couple of years older than you.
Couple of years older. So she was actually a geriatric mother at 41. But yeah, so I was leaving my office. Yeah, exactly. I was leaving my office and I fell to the floor. I felt as if I was going to faint, and there was a lot of bleeding. And I immediately called my doctor and I said, "Look, something's up." And he sent me to the lab for blood tests. And of course, my blood tests were done by another friend's mother. And she called me in when I went back to the lab and said, have a seat. And I thought that we were searching for something like early menopause or that something else might be wrong. And she actually said to me, look, your FSH and your AMH are really low, and I think you need to speak to a gynecologist. Now, what the hell is an FSH and what on earth is an AMH? So this is where the trick begins. It's like I'm 39 and I'm being thrown some fertility terminology that I've never heard of before at 39. So I go back to my gynecologist, who very reputable, very good at what he does. And to his credit, he said to me, look, obviously there's a fertility issue here, or potentially a fertility issue. They're very low, your hormones. You should go and speak to a fertility expert. So I then went and identified somebody at a clinic that I wanted to speak to. And the gist of it was I didn't have a very high egg count, and the eggs that I did have were possibly of a very poor quality at 39, which they would be. It's just that no one had told me that. So we toyed with the idea of freezing some eggs, and I thought, because it's in my character, I was like, well, I've been given this opportunity, I have to grab it. So somebody tells you you've got an issue and there's something you can do to prevent it.
To give more options,
then,
to leave yourself with more options.
So I did the whole egg freezing thing. Obviously, it's a process that I write about in the book, which is actually a compilation of my blog. And rather than go through it, because we don't have time, it's available for people to read.
And you can buy everyone on Amazon, and also at St. Raphael Resorts.
Yes,
We're going to have it here. So, yeah.
So I write about the process and the whole emotional journey in this book, because it's the same process as IVF, but the difference is that you're doing it alone. And it's not just that you're doing it alone, you're doing it without an end objective. If you're someone who's decided I'm going to fertilize an egg with my boyfriend or my husband, there's a goal. It's very easy to be focused and to know where to channel your emotions and your energy. Whereas when you're doing it because you've been told medically you should probably do it, but you don't know if you want to be a mother, you don't have a partner, you don't really know if you're ever going to fertilize them, it's a very different experience. And that's what I'm writing about in this book. It's all about the ups and the downs of how I was feeling. It's what was going on in my head. And this was a blog that I started in COVID, actually. And it was when I came out of COVID that I thought, well, look, I really enjoy writing and I want to see if other people enjoy my writing. And you know what? I want to share the experience because I might help other people. So I just uploaded it and did a cover, and lo and behold, it was on Amazon. And I'm amazed at how well received the topic has been, because now Cryos International, that's an egg and sperm bank, an international one based in Cyprus, alongside Action PR and some other stakeholders, have been calling me in to talk on panels about fertility awareness, because we tragically have realized that women are being made aware of egg freezing when it's already too late. And if I'm perfectly honest, I only managed to freeze 3 eggs at 39, which means they're probably useless. When you look at the stats, you should be doing it at 28. You should be doing it at the very latest at 34. And of course, there are government schemes now. So if you medically need help with your fertility, they will pay up to something like $2,500 for you to freeze your eggs. Nobody knows. Nobody knows about any of this. You know, the gynecologists are not educating their patients. They don't even have leaflets to say this is what you should be considering. And the thing is that the one thing that I'd like to get across, I feel quite passionately about, because Farah, you know all about my love life, or my non-existent love life. But one of the things that dealing with this issue allows you to do is to relax a little bit. It allows you to relax about finding your prince on his white horse. And it also allows you to almost juggle your priorities a little bit, because the day that I realized that maybe I'm not going to be a mother was the day I also realized that I need to stop stressing about dating, because if the ticking clock isn't an issue, why am I so stressed, you know? And now that I have the eggs, let's say I ever decided to use them, they're there and they're 39, they're not 45. So it really does have a ripple effect on all your choices in life, because for women, it's such a pressure. And for men as well. I mean, how many of our friends do we know who said, I want to become a dad. I want to be a young dad. So my girlfriend now ticks 5 of 10 boxes. I'm just going to have a child with her. And then lo and behold, you know.
Yeah, they're divorced.
They're divorced.
They're wondering why their kids are messed up because she wasn't a great mother to begin with.
So I think it's not just about women and their inherent need to become mothers. It's about dealing with something that it's a reality for everybody, in the same way as you've got your your physical health, you've also got your mental health, and you've got your fertility health. And there is no reason why people shouldn't be talking about this. They should be talking about it in school, at university, because every woman and every man is going to come face to face with this. And I am surrounded by women spending thousands and thousands on IVF, and it's emotionally grueling. It really is not fun. So that's what this book is about. And I'd like to hope that I've kind of written it with enough humor to make it enjoyable. It's not a sad book.
No, not at all. It's actually a book with an awful lot of hope in it.
Yeah.
And I especially love the ending. I was really touched by a lot of it. And I actually wanted to ask you about your humor, because you do say in the book that you, which is from your family side, from your mum's side, very British, you use humour to cover up a lot. And I think, yeah, definitely in general, that's our English side of us, which is good. But then it does mean that it doesn't always help us. And I also read a lovely thing yesterday that, I'm not saying we're depressed, but that depression starts with suppression. And often...
Oh, no!
Humour,
God help me!
Yeah, exactly. With humour, we suppress so much.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about that. And I also want to ask you, without getting into too much, I want everybody really to read this book. But what also struck me, and knowing you well, and I don't know, do we have tissues here? I don't want to make us cry. But you wrote the book in first person, and yet your name is on the front cover. It's here for everyone to see. And yet you called yourself a different name. He gave everyone in it a different name. Okay, I obviously know who everyone was, including Leo, but maybe for other people they won't, but they'll guess that, that your sister and your dad and your mum and your family, immediate family are. I love the doctors, and you even put yourself in a different place, in a different country. Did that make that easier to write? Was that to make it more appealing to readers? Was that for you to kind of distance yourself from what was happening?
You're pulling a Steve Bartlett on me now. I always thought podcasts do this because they're live, one cut, and you can't plead the Fifth Amendment. Very interesting question. And I'm really glad you asked it, actually, because I'm in that phase of my life now. Like I said before, we grew up in a society where a lot of things were taboo. And I'm very lucky that my father is a sort of very open-minded Cypriot. I mean, the amount of things he's had to put up with in his life, from one daughter who wanted to do media and another daughter who's an actress. And yes, humor is something that we use as a defense, I think. And I'm a very loud and outgoing person, but I'm quite an introvert. So I'm very self-content. And I've spent way too much of my life suppressing things, a lot of time sort of holding other people up, supporting other people, helping other people. As you know, Farah, that I'm a big advocate for mental health as well, because I've seen and experienced a lot of mental illness and depression in my life. And I actually think, statistically, because I know that 1 in 5 or 6 people in Cyprus and in Europe are either suffering from sort of poor mental health or depression.
It's 1 in 4 actually,
it's
and
1
it's
in
going
4,
to 1 in 3.
So because I'm open to it, and because I resonate with it, I seem to spot it. So people will talk to me about it more openly, which is probably why I'm surrounded by it. So I feel really passionately about all aspects of mental health across the spectrum. So, you don't have to have a mental illness to have a need to protect your mental health. You could have good mental health or poor mental health. We all have mental health, and we have to look after it. So I think because I grew up with all this awareness surrounding mental health and mental illness, and also because I learned to deal with it from a very young age, I was desperate to bust the taboo, but I think I wasn't quite ready yet. So when I started blogging, for a start, I changed the location and the names because I didn't want, in my sort of creative license, any doctors to feel that I was trying to expose them, because I wasn't. There's a lot of humor in here that's true to the situation, but there's a lot of reality as well that it's just completely unnecessary to expose anybody.
And we're from a small place. So if we say, we went to a doctor in Limassol, and we start describing what the office looked like, everyone will know where it is,
and
even
also,
if we change the name.
But also I had to make it more amusing than perhaps it was. So I've created a lot of character in there that isn't really real anyway. So I thought there was an aspect of it that was like, okay, no need to say that it's me. Having said that, what I love about the whole journey is that because the book was well received, and because I've been on these panels, and because I've been forced to just be, brave about it and say that it was me, now all of a sudden the gates are open. I can't stop now. So I'm still blogging on Fovaritage. So my website is fovaritage.com. And I'm blogging about being a single female in her 40s. And I'm talking very openly now. And I really no longer care. And that is why I am so for people just, putting their fear aside and just going for it. Whether that's writing a book, which you've done amazingly as well, whether it's writing a book or supporting a cause. It's like when you press send or upload, you actually realize that the sky hasn't fallen. It's not the end of the world. You know, the people listening are the people who want to listen. I mean, I write blogs and half of my friends haven't even read them because I know that the people reading or the people engaging are the people who really want to know more, in the same way as a podcast. You know, they last for an hour and everyone's moaning all the time. Why would I listen to a 1 hour podcast? Well, you don't have to. You listen if the person is engaging, you listen if the topic's of interest. And I actually listen to podcasts while I'm getting ready for work.
So that's what I always tell people. It's radio on demand. Do you know what podcasting stands for?
I Googled it. It started with, did it not start with iPods?
No, that's what a lot of people think, but no. It's podcasting actually, and I only found this out the other day as well. I didn't realise they'd been around for 20 years. I thought it was very new. And it's portable on demand.
No.
Yeah. Casting,
well, I never.
There you go.
Well, I never.
And sorry that I'm on my phone now, but I just wanted to look up this quote that I absolutely love, which I think it's Winston Churchill that said that. And my brother resent to me the other day because he said, I always have told him this. When you're 20, you care what everyone thinks. When you're 40, you stop caring what everyone thinks. When you're 60, we haven't got there yet, you realise no one was ever thinking about you in the first place. And I think we're at that stage now. We're like, we don't care what you think. But then when we're older, we'll be like, did they really even care?
I love this decade, Farah. I love it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why I spent so long, trying to find the right brand name. I wanted to trademark something that was mine. And your favorite age, okay, the over is stuck in the middle is relevant for women. But for me, being 40 has just flipped everything on its head. I really couldn't care less what anybody thinks. I'm trying in my own way, and this is my mission actually. I'm in terms of more awareness around mental health and all these taboos that we've lived with our whole lives in Cyprus. I am making, small steps to bust them, and I will get there, because I think the younger generations now are so exposed to all this gender malarkey and all of these things that are prevalent in our society today. So whether they like it or not, they need to be talking about these things. We can't hide anymore, and I actually feel sorry for our parents' generation, because there was a lot of trauma that they had to suppress because you couldn't possibly talk about things like mental health or depression when it was 1980 or 1990.
Yeah, no way.
Whereas
and
now,
in Cyprus, because it was all considered, from your genes, and you'd have bad blood.
Oh, of course.
No
so
one will
now
marry
you can, and you have to. Now we absolutely have to be talking about these things, and I want to give service, and I am giving service, and it's things that you don't necessarily go around promoting, that I'm doing this or I'm doing that. I can remember even when we were kids, my mother was a member of the Red Cross. We used to do riding for the disabled. My dad was involved in Theodogos. It's like there's so many charities and so many associations you can be a part of to help. People don't have to know, but it's great that help is now available. And I think we need to be more open about that.
I think I said this little story on another episode. I can't remember which one, but it's one of my favourites, so I'm going to re-say it. And it's about the ripple effect. And there was a big storm, and all his starfish were washed up on the shore. And do you know this?
No.
And a little boy went, and he started picking up as many starfish as he could, and every single one he picked up and he threw it in, and he went to the next and he threw it in. And an old man was walking past, and he said, my son, what are you doing? This, you cannot possibly save them all. Like, don't bother. And the little boy just looked at him, picked up another one, threw it in. And the old man said again, what difference can it possibly make? And he picked up one, threw it in, and he said, it made a difference to that one.
Exactly. Oh,
and that's the
it's
point.
So
like,
true, isn't it?
You might be doing all of this, and maybe it just takes that one woman to hear your story, which will be her survival guide, and she'll say, wow, that will trigger something, whatever it is. Maybe she'll freeze her eggs earlier, maybe she'll just won't care, maybe she'll, just be more aware, whatever it is. And so, never stop trying, never stop. Yeah.
That's all it is. I mean, I've had some lovely emails from women wanting to know more. And that's all it takes. Yeah. One or two people. I mean, it was never about awareness. It was never about making money. That's the joke of the century. I can literally only buy one bottle of wine from the money I've made off this book. It was just about getting the message out there and making sure that someone who felt potentially as lonely as I did through the journey would have company.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And loneliness is one of the biggest, say, diseases of the modern world. So, yeah. Oh my goodness. I have so much that I still want to say. I'm going to say a few things and just then let the listeners look it up. But yeah, I mean, I love the names you chose as well, because of course they're my family too. So there's Jasmine in there, and I've obviously got a Yasmina. There's a Leo in there, which I found quite ironic because, not because I've got a son called Leon, but you always said as well, when I had Leo, you were like, oh, I love that name. And if I ever had a boy, I was going to call him also Leo. And then I thought, imagine that you then took that name and gave that name to your lover in the book, as opposed to your son. I could analyze this book.
Don't you dare ask me who my lover is.
I'm not on this. I know.
Another
you know if
podcast.
you're listening, but yeah. Just so much in there. And I love that it was rose and jasmine, flowers that are the same and that they're flowers and yet so different. And you guys are. And you and your sister, so many people who know you will say, oh, that you look so similar. There's so much about you guys, and yet you're just poles apart in good ways and unique. And yeah, so I could really analyze. I could even analyze the end of the book where you turn left. I was like, why left and not right? Anyway, I went like really, yeah. But we'll leave that for another show. So I just want to say thank you. I want to ask you your favorite quote, which I ask everyone who's been on here. So do you have a favorite quote or favorite book? Apart from Fovaritage.
The sky is the limit is so representative of the way I've always lived my life. And ironically, I actually posted a blog yesterday that was all about Top Gun, which sounds incredibly cheesy. But for me, I'll never forget my dad texted me before I went to the University of London Air Squadron for my interview to become an officer in the RAF and learn how to fly. That was just one of
That's
many.
another story now.
Yeah, another story there. But he texted me, the sky is the limit. And I realized that as Sophia, as a person, that's one of the things that always defines me. And it's one of the things I wish children would all have the capacity to learn, believe that they can do anything, because there's nothing worse than limiting yourself, nothing worse than feeling that you can't, because all you have to do is try. And it's just such a beautiful quote for me. And because I have this passion for flying and the love for the skies, it just really, it tells my story from start to finish. I will never stop believing that I can do anything I set my mind to. I love it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you can, and you prove that.
Ah.
Bonus question. So you've seen this and heard it in some of the others. I'll read it to you. Let me see what it is. I hope it's a good one.
What happens when you put two bossy boots in a studio?
Oh my goodness. I cannot. Yeah, exactly. I cannot believe you got this. Were you a favourite child of one of your parents, and how did you know? Swear to God, that's the question. We're just talking about families.
Wow. You see, isn't that funny? It's a weird one, because if you ask my sister, she'll say I was the favourite.
That you were, or
yeah,
she was. Yeah.
She'll say I was the favourite for both of them, because I was just annoyingly like, I would always come home, it'd be like, oh yeah, I did it. I got 20 out of 20 in my test. I was annoying, I was that annoying kid that
the
was...
The golden child.
I wasn't though,
like Isabella
because
from Encanto.
I think I used my success and my academia because I felt I wasn't the favourite child. So isn't that interesting? That I always felt that my sister had this amazing connection with my dad. I always felt that she was... I mean, because you have a bond with your firstborn, don't you? The secondborn, we're the ones that are kind of like, I'll deal with, change your own nappy. Because we're more independent, I feel, almost, because they've done it once and they're more relaxed with us. But anyway, to answer the question, because I can't answer this question. I I don't think I was. I think my mum, there's a lot of Thompson in me. So my mother is from Cambridge, and my grandma was this amazing, like spirited, hard nut. She was, my grandfather passed away, I think, before she turned 60, and she traveled the world on her own, very independent. She loved the entertainment industry. She loved her wine, her good food, very worldly. And she was also very generous. Very generous. She used to come to Cyprus at Christmas like with half of Mothercare in her bags. You know, at the time, Mothercare was like the holy grail for us in Cyprus. So there's a lot of me from the English side of the family. I'm a lot similar to my uncle as well, who's still
does
single.
That endear your mother to you, or does that put her off you?
No,
Because
I
sometimes
think
it can go the other way.
There's definitely something about the way I live my life, because my mother was always very much grab every opportunity with both hands. She's like, always wear your mascara. You never know where you're going to end up. Always make sure you're wearing a good pair of underwear in case you have a car accident. My mum was always very much, I mean, not that my dad didn't push me, but my mum is all about opportunities. And I think because I'm always on it and I'm always doing fun things and I'm always going on adventures and I'm traveling a lot, there's a part of my grandma in me and of my uncle in me. So I think it's a nice thing for my mum. I think she connects well with that. And my dad, I'm not going to deny it, my dad and I are peas in a pod. We're so similar. So I can't answer that question. I can't.
So, well, it sounds like you're both special. I mean, I know that you both are. Maybe, you never know. I mean, and I can just say from my experience as a parent, I won't say as a child, but yes, the first one is definitely, you remember everything. It's so special when you have your first child. It's just like, wow. And I always laugh, you give birth and it's like, oh, this child is handed to you and you're just like.
Michael was not going, sorry.
I think it was doing
I'll
it in a different way.
I'll never forget coming to the clinic
like,
with some champagne and Michael was so like,
you didn't know what was
confused, bless
happening.
him.
But the first is very much like that. I mean, I just remember Yasmin, I just didn't put her down. It was just this surreal, really, really, really special time. It's equally as special with the second, but it's so different. And I would say the second, though, in a way, they're luckier because you're more experienced and you know how to love. You know what it is to be a mother or a father.
Right.
And so that love is already there. So the second one gets it immediately. The first, you grow with it.
Wow.
It's like, okay, and you're a bit like, so you do love them, but you're growing every day. The second, it's like, what?
What about the third, Farah?
And the third is also, but I would say the difference, I mean, I don't know, maybe because I had a boy for the second, I always laugh. So Yasmina, it was, this halo child that was just handed to me and it was all like, she was like a glass doll and everything was so, carefully put down. And then Leon, I just had him and I remember the first night I was in the clinic and Michael was like, oh, what should I do? I'm like, oh, you go home. And we've got Yasmina at home. He went home. He didn't stay like with Yasmina. And then I was on my own with the baby. I never let my children stay in that nursery room. I just thought it was horrific. I wanted the babies with me. So Leon was with me next to me. I had my C-section wound, so I couldn't move or stand up. And he would cry for milk. And I would just kind of scoot along, pick him up with one hand, throw him onto a boob. And then when he was done, I would literally, because it was too far away. So I'd throw him back. And I remember him being, not straight in that little crib and maybe his head was a bit against the glass side. And I'd be like, oh, approximately, he's all right. It would never have happened with Yasmina.
No,
so obviously he grew up definitely more independent.
Yeah.
So I'm sure for you,
you
were
that with all our friends as well. That the second born's a little bit more independent, more cheeky. It's definitely reflects the emotions that the parents were going through as well. Yeah.
And they have to get that attention that you were saying, I got this in my
of course.
grade and whatever, because they feel that the first has already got it by being this golden child that's born. So it is interesting, but definitely knowing your family and your parents, they love you very, very much. I'm happy you got this question.
Yeah.
It's food for thought. And thank you so much for being on this podcast.
Thank you.
I can't wait for
the
this episode to
invitation.
come out.
I love what you're doing, and I think these long-form interviews are especially now with, you know, the access we have to the internet, it's such an amazing thing to be able to listen to people's stories. Yeah, why not?
Definitely, yeah. And yeah, of course, our take is that everyone, one way or another, is connected with hotels. And so you worked for a family that owned the first 5-star hotel in Cyprus that I was a member of as a little child while this hotel was being built. And yeah, they've definitely done a lot.
I mean, I could live in a hotel easily. I love the atmosphere of the hotel and the familiarity with the staff. It's a great, great thing that you've got going here. Very nice.
Thank you so much. And don't forget, everyone, check out Fovaritage, if I've said that correctly.
Bravo.
And it's on Amazon, on all Amazons, and super affordable as well at just a few euros. And it's here at St. Raphael Resort Shop, so come and get your copy. Thank you very much, my dear. All the best.
You too. Thank you.